Hey guys, welcome back to another recipe tutorial. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make the best gluten-free baguettes. They have a nice chewy crust and they're lovely and squidgy on the inside. So let's get baking. The first thing you're going to need to do is activate your yeast. To do this, you want a jug with some warm water and then you're going to stir in 2 tablespoons of caster sugar. Once you've done this, add your yeast. I'm using the Allinson's Easy Bake yeast, but there are a few gluten-free varieties. Give it a good stir and then cover this. Now you want to leave it in a warm place for 5 minutes. And while we're doing that, we're going to prepare our other ingredients. So here I'm adding xanthan gum and salt to some gluten-free white bread flour. And then for the wet ingredients, I'm going to crack 2 egg whites into a bowl. Now this is how I separate my eggs, but you can also do it other ways, such as pouring the egg through your fingers and chopping the yolk that way. Make sure you don't get the yolk in, put them to one side. They're great in omelettes or if you want to make some custard. I'm also adding some olive oil to this and a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, which just helps with the texture of the bread. And then you want to give this a good whisk. We're not looking to create anything like you would if you were making a meringue. We just want a few little bubbles like this. And the final thing that you want to do whilst we're waiting for our yeast to activate is to get your baguette tray, which looks like this, and to grease it with some olive oil and then flour it as well. Now I'd really recommend getting a baguette tray, and I will link this one down below in the caption because I think it's really important to get those lovely little bubbles on the bottom of the baguette, and it also helps it to cook evenly. You could probably make this on a baking tray, but this is the way to get the perfect baguette shape. And now you can see after 5 to 10 minutes my yeast has a lovely foam on top and it's time to make the dough. So I'm just going to really simply add everything to one mixing bowl. So I popped in the dry ingredients, now I'm popping in the yeast mixture, and then we're just going to add in those egg whites and vinegar and oil. And then it's really a case of just mixing this up. So if you're making traditional normal bread, you'll find that you'd have a really thick dough that you can knead, but gluten-free bread is not the same. So with this, you can see you want a really thick, sticky batter, and you're really going to have to get in there with the wooden spoon. It takes a bit of work, but it is worth it, trust me. So once you've got this dough and you can see it was coming away from the mixing bowl slightly, it's time to shape your baguettes. To do this, I like to flour a work surface. I use either plain gluten-free flour or rice flour for this, and then I'm just going to scrape half of the dough out onto this. Now I'm just using a cheap bread scraper that I've got, which is pretty handy for this sort of thing. And then you want to flour your hands as well to make sure the dough doesn't stick. Roll the dough in the flour so that it's not sticky at all, and then just use your hands to shape it into this sort of rough baguette shape. And as you can see, it's fatter in the middle and then tapered out towards the ends, which is the kind of shape you'd find if you were buying a normal baguette in the shops. And then once you've got it, it should be about 12 inches long roughly. I'm just going to lift it up and pop it in the baguette tray, smooth out any lumps and bumps, and then you're just going to repeat exactly the same thing with the rest of the dough. So we're aiming for 2 baguettes that are about the same size. I've done this by eye, but you can measure out the weight of the dough if you want to, and then you can get exactly half of the dough in each baguette. So once you've shaped the second one, and again you can see just using the flour to make sure nothing sticks, but we don't want to add too much flour to the mix. And then I'm going to pop this in, and then you can find as well that if you have got any dough which is not quite the shape you want it, you can just use your bread scraper to kind of neaten off the edges a bit, but don't worry too much because we're going to prove this now. So I've put mine on a tray to stop it making such a mess, and then I've just wrapped it really loosely in some oiled cling film. And we want to leave this for about an hour and a half to 2 hours until it puffs up to about 1.5 times its size, like this. Now these baguettes, if you feel them, will feel nice and light and puffy. And once they have pretty much proved, when you're preheating your oven, you want to add in some boiling water. Now I pop this in a deep roasting tin at the bottom of the oven, and this is the secret to the perfect chewy crust. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to flour the baguettes lightly and slash them to make sure that they don't burst open, and then it's time to pop them in the oven, and look at that steam. That is going to create just the best crust. And look, here we go, 20 to 25 minutes later, gorgeously golden baguettes. As you can see, they're lovely and crisp and crunchy on the outside. In a minute I'll cut into it and you'll see how squishy they are inside. And they've got those gorgeous little bubbles on the bottom, which is just like bakery bread. This is the kind of thing that I really miss with gluten-free baking, so it's so nice to be able to replicate it at home. Now you want to leave them for at least half an hour to an hour. You've got to let the gums settle. You want warm bread, not hot bread. But as you can see, when you cut into them, they've got lovely air bubbles. They're nice and squishy, and they've got this gorgeous crust. They are just so nice. Perfect for filling, perfect for garlic bread or dipping in soup. If you like this video, make sure you hit subscribe down below, give me a thumbs up, and check out the description for the full written recipe on the blog.